three topics that we wanted to talk with y'all about tonight.
Do we have? Well, I know. Oh, yeah.
So we had three things we wanted to talk with y'all about, and felt like each one of these could be lengthy discussions. So we appreciate your time tonight and coming in on an off Tuesday to do this. The first one, the first two actually are going to be handled by Greg, so I'm going to let him take it.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. Yeah, this is the first of my two briefings. This one is on the relooking the on-street and residential lot parking. A little bit of background, just to sort of go back in time. Back on 18 October, we did the citywide tour with y'all. On the 7th is when I did the first briefing talking about on-street parking, parking on unapproved services, and residential parking. At that time, I was given the guidance to address the issue with some ambiguity regarding the unimproved surface parking, as well as to relook the definition of a commercial vehicle as it pertained to what we could put in the residential areas. So on 19 December is when y'all passed the ordinances to clarify the parking on unapproved surfaces and to reduce the definition of commercial vehicle. It was originally 26,000 pounds, and we reduced that definition to 14,000 pounds. And that leads us to tonight. So the remaining issues regarding on-street parking, again, there's the issue we saw there. Again, the vehicle size, trailer size was what we addressed already through y'all in December. We still have the safety issues we talked about. Were addressed through me under the authorities that y'all already gave me in the ordinance. That was particularly Fane, some areas in Hollywood Park, some areas in Willow Run, and then one road on Blue Ridge Court. And then there were some nuisance issues that remained unresolved regarding residential parking. We had talked a little bit about quantity, but that was unresolved, as well as we want to relook any parking on unimproved surfaces as it relates to the lots. So again, just to reiterate, the on-street parking, here's two issues. I know this is Natalie Lane, where of course we've had a citizen come and talk about this area again, but it just highlights what is actually not. This is not just limited to this area, but it's prevalent throughout the city, which is folks parking on both sides of the street as available, and has certain implications depending on the areas. But something to talk about though is Chief Chase went out with the quints, and in certain areas, again, the quint in most areas still fits. So that was again the purpose of that slide, just to show that the quint does fit. Again, just to reiterate the current authority, City Council has the authority to declare no parking on any public street, and there is already a list in the ordinance about what areas are declared or have been declared as no parking. Traffic engineer, I have the authority to declare no parking on any public street under 30 feet wide. For 20 feet for the really narrow roads, I can actually take out both sides of the parking on both sides of those streets for public safety. On 30 feet roads, I can take out one side. So example, that the picture I showed, in both cases, those are streets under 30 feet. There's typically 27 feet. And then again, it's implemented based on public safety concerns. I'm sure you saw in the weekly report the process that we're going through right now to close certain areas. And then those were triggered by request from the fire department. For on-street parking, again, current authorities, commercial vehicle parking is limited to industrial areas, it's basically non-residential. And again, that's the highlight is the change, the 14,000 pounds and the 5,000 pound trailers, which again were approved as an ordinance on 19 December. The second bullet, again, we have already have ordinance in place to restrict parking on the street based on address oversized vehicles and other items. Again, just to reiterate visually what we're talking about here. So before that box truck you see parking on someone's driveway, that's actually under 26,000 pounds, but that's been shifted to basically F-350s or what we call Type 3 and below, or Class 3 and below vehicles. Before we could have trailers up to 10,000 pounds. Now they're down to trailers under 5,000 pounds. The boat on the left would be, in our ordinance, we're still allowed to have boats on the property, but that particular size of boat, of course it'd have to be connected, but that's the size that would not be allowed on the streets. But something smaller could be on the street, like if they're just pulling up. But again, just to give you some size differences. These are some options we've brought up before. So again, this is where we're coming back, seeing if there's any more guidance for options related to on-street. So the first one, again, is that council, using your authority, that you can declare any street as no parking, can declare any street as no parking if you find that area is becoming a nuisance area. Second is implement a parking permit program. Two ways we're recommending: either the property owners come to council requesting implementation of a parking permit program in their neighborhood, or city council can, through ordinance, direct the establishment of parking permit program. And again, for that, they would register their vehicles. There'd be an annual fee, mainly just to cover the cost of all the decals and the registration. And then we would have a maximum limit per household based on basically available parking in the area. And the intent there is to sort of keep folks from using the city right-of-way as additional parking for whatever reason, maybe even outside of basically personal family use. And finally, the residents could request no parking. So right now, using under the authority already in the ordinance, I go through the process to declare no parking zones, basically under public safety concerns. So the fire department, the police department submit requests, and then we go through the process of analyzing that and notifying the public. But in this case, it would also open it up to neighborhoods, or at least the folks along the streets, that they could petition for us to declare sections as no parking zone. The 90% is, of course, is totally negotiable. Where we modeled after was the traffic calming ordinance. So for speed bumps, it does require a 90% buy-in of the neighbors.
Is that a whole block, or is that, because some blocks are really long? So.
Well, what I would recommend is that if we were to close a particular street, it would be between road segments, so like intersection to intersection.
Okay.
So I wouldn't, and then that next street segment could do it. I mean, obviously a more concerted effort is probably recommended amongst the property owners. Otherwise, what will happen is, there would be a chance, if you just said this road segment's no parking, then what happens is then that excess parking may end up just sort of getting squished into other areas. So it probably need to be, the more the neighborhoods can organize, and under option 3, the better for all of them to try to address the issue, or some of them are going to get really dumped on.
Yeah, my street is 3 blocks long. There's no, that's it. I mean, Don Ridge is just 3 blocks long. It's one continuous street.
And again, we already have a policy or procedures in place for notifying the public of our intent to close areas based on public safety, and with an opportunity for hearings, etc. And we would just again open that up because the public just desires that, this in their neighborhood. So they again moves, oh, yes,
Well,
sir.
why don't we pause there? So the next part of this is then to talk about on-property parking. So, but we'd like your input on, your thoughts on the on-street parking. Kind of, is there a direction that you want us to pursue on that? Or would you want to go ahead and go through the discussion on the on-property parking first and then come back to
I
this?
think they're two separate items, let's do it.
It is, I mean, if you start regulating on-property parking, then that's could push cars to the street as well. So they're kind of related, but if you want to, it's probably better, to kind of talk about them separately. That's what y'all want to do. So so we'll pause here, and this is kind of where we got to the last time in the discussion with y'all. But then and as Greg said, reiterated, we took care of a couple of low-hanging fruit items. But now we're kind of wanting to come back in Brown and see what you want us to do on this.
Has there been any consideration given to limiting or prohibiting overnight parking? In other words, you can park on the street during the day, but you can't leave your car out there overnight.
Well, I mean, we've talked to some of it, but the thing that continues to come to mind is, the visitors. What if my family comes over to visit? They drive in from out of town and they park on the curb because I've got 2 spots in my driveway. The other part I think would get challenging is to actually determine if they parked overnight or not, unless we monitor that activity over the evening. So that was what we had talked about, or at least the things that we had examined as being some issues with implementation with that.
Well, but, so all you're saying is the problem is that you would have to have code enforcement or the police enforce it.
Yeah, probably the police.
Police, well, so, but they need to do that if that's the policy that because that's something to consider.
Well, it's just another tool.
Another tool, exactly. But I have never heard of that one before, so it should have been something that.
But if I heard you right, the city council can declare no parking in any street in the city.
Oh, absolutely. And it could be as long or as short as you want.
And you can regulate that by days or by hours too. I mean, right now there are areas that are regulated by days that are no parking on certain days of the week. So it's the same idea as if you want to regulate it by certain hours.
Do you have a list of streets, or we're just talking about it in general?
Are you talking about a list of streets currently declared as no parking?
Or that under consideration?
We do not have a list of streets that are nominated for under consideration.
I like that, nominated.
Other than
I got some nominated.
Other than the ones that the fire department has already nominated.
Other than the
for
ones
us.
that the fire department had already identified, and we showed you all those before, and those were mostly intersections that we're addressing right now with no parking.
And have you had the opportunity to drive down all the streets, for instance, in the Fair Meadows area?
Yes, ma'am. I have pictures. I don't have
Yeah.
them, Greg, I've got them.
And y'all drove it at night as well, didn't you?
Yes,
And I thought about you
And
for the
that's-
fire the other night.
ma'am?
The fire
Mhm.
that was on Driftwood?
Yes, ma'am. It was coming in off of K-Van and all that, there was not an issue. Coming up Driftwood, that it was narrow, but it was straight. A lot of times we have issues with people parking closer to the curbs, and the issue is much bigger at night when everybody's there and you have multiple vehicles there. Now, is that going to be the same street every night? That's where we run into, problems. If we can identify some of these and mark, I guess either the corners first or just do all the corners, just to make sure they're not parking on the corners and it's straight across from them. But if you have a house straight across from it, you're giving that house a no parking zone. But if it's a right of way and they're just giving us a little bit of turning radius up in that area, it'd help us out tremendously.
Well, that was my concern in seeing it. It was incredibly tight going through there, and I thought if someone needed an ambulance or a fire, it would.
some of the
scary.
things we run into is when if they do park away from the curb by a foot over here and a foot over there, if we get up in the ambulance, you sometimes can't get the doors to the ambulance all the way up.
Right.
How are you gonna do that?
Well, and that's my concern, and I really want that area looked at. I did not realize it because during the daytime, they're gone.
And that's where we run, have the problem of which houses are doing it. They may move in, move out, take all their vehicles with them, or all their friends with them, and you don't have that problem 2 months down the road or whatever, but somebody else moves in there and they bring a lot more with them, and now you have a problem that we didn't know about.
Well, if we say you can't park, where do they park?
Well, they have to figure out maybe that they can't have 15 cars for,
So is the issue because they have too many cars?
they have too many cars. And the
Or
houses
there
are,
are multiple families living in
That
there.
could
There's
be
not
too.
single-family homes. That's a lot of the cases that I've been talking about.
And if we're going straight, it's not too terribly bad. I mean, it's close, there's no doubt about that, but going straight is not an issue. You have,
I have that one.
Yeah, when you said this picture, you said that
This
it
was
goes
for-
down most streets. Does that mean, now, is that really all? Because he said most.
It's a 27-foot street.
now, if you'll see the guy parked over here with his wheel, he's kind of, if they park in here, put their wheel here, on both sides, it's not a problem. But a lot of people will park up here and not get close to the curb. When you do that, you take a foot away from here and a foot away from here, and now you're down to about like that. Or somebody tries to parallel park that can't, leaves part of it sticking out, that's where we run into problems.
I think that's more the issue. I don't think that they're like purposefully parking in the street. I don't think
No,
they know
I don't
how.
think they're purposely doing it at all.
They just can't. They don't know how to park next to the curb.
Yeah.
Well,
They-
they're illegally parked right there.
Chief Brown?
Right, they don't have their license.
Well,
Is there a statute on how far away you can be parked from the curb?
Yes, sir, it is. It's 18 inches from
18
the curb.
inches.
so you can actually
You can
lose
park 18 inches.
36 inches or 3 feet on a
I've
27-foot
reparked
line.
like 3
Is
times.
that county or is that local?
Yeah.
It's state
Well,
law.
that's because if both sides did that, that's 3 foot.
Yeah.
Is that a 27-foot street?
Yes.
All right, then it gives you 24 left, so.
Yeah, 2 cars.
And
You're talking
side mirrors on the
Yeah,
cars and everything.
8-foot wide quint.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, the Quint, fortunately, is a taller vehicle, so its mirrors are higher. If its
Yeah.
mirrors were down where the mirrors are on those pickup trucks,
They're neat.
yeah.
Well, you can see it'd be hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, one of the issues like in Fair Meadows, okay, you go to Cripple Creek in Wind River, you've got a little juke in there, a little small curve, and those curves create problems because people don't get one way or the other. Plus, we have a little bit of a swing to the truck, which, with the engine, it's not a big deal because it has a tighter turning radius. The newer Quint is a single axle. It's going to have a little tighter turning radius, but also the back end's going to kick out a little bit further. So drives a little bit different than this one, so it's, it may be able to maneuver through there a little bit easier, but, at the same time, when you throw that 1.5 2 foot out there, it creates a problem. And like the corners at Summit Ridge, both ends of it, the little small areas in Hollywood Park that have the cul-de-sac parking, and the one on Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge has a cul-de-sac parking, so if they go in there and point in, everybody points in, and if somebody turns, parks on that curb, we can't even get through there, because we have to swing out and around, and when we do that, we end up nosing into the vehicles on the other side. Either that or hitting the ones on the left.
And so, would you be the ones that would decide what streets are,
Probably so, I would say so. And once again, why don't we do all of them? I guess you could do all the corners to a certain extent, just to give us a little bit on all the corners and across the street if it's a T. And then as we identify them, as we go out at, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, see where those are, then we can, identify those, send him an email, say, hey, this is becoming a problem. It wasn't a problem before that we didn't mark.
but do you know it's a problem until it's a problem, and it could be
Yes, well, and that's part of the problem as well, is sometimes we work our way through there, trying to get somewhere. Do we remember to go back and email that after we did, after that house fire, they were out there for several hours, come back and write an email about, cars sticking out the way, it usually doesn't happen, so.
I had no idea until after the elections in May, and I went to pick up my signs, and I was dumbfounded at how tight it was. I had no idea, because in the daytime, they're gone.
And it gets really bad when it ices.
So, I think we need to do something.
Go back to the options again?
Yeah.
Suggest.
I say, go for it, fire department. You figure it out. Tell us.
Well, if we had the permits, could that not limit how many people could
Yeah.
park?
Yes.
So many people, so many permits per house?
So many permits per house, that's correct.
If you don't have a permit, then you can't park
There you
there.
go.
In certain streets, like Natalie, in District 1, I think the permits would work very well there.
That would cure a problem over there.
Yeah. And then that problem may go away if he can't park his cars and work on them out in the street.
Okay, well, does it say how many, or we set the maximum per house?
We would set it.
Correct. And part of that would be informed by what the street can hold relative to the houses.
Right.
So on the larger lots, you can hold more, the houses that have larger lots can, technically hold more cars per house. But when you get up into like Fair Meadows, which is very, narrow lot line, that maybe have like 2 car widths in front of their house. So maybe that one gets, 1 or 2 street parking permits versus somewhere, say like Natalie Lane, where the lots are larger, at least the frontage is larger, maybe they get 2 or 3 on the street. But we would have to sort of look at, how many houses versus, and make some calculations to figure out how much street parking is available in a particular neighborhood based on, the lengths of road.
Well, if I hear what you're saying, John, the major concern ought to be the fire equipment, emergency equipment and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think if we can come to a common feeling about it, we can ask the fire department, police department, or whoever, or the engineering department
But
to come up with a recommendation for it.
That's a good idea, though, having permits, because then we don't have to get involved at all. They can decide
Well,
what 2 people get it.
Who polices the permit, so if,
Yeah.
if
Police
if the cars are still there, and, I mean, who's riding by to see if each car has a permit?
Well,
Council.
it may be the police department.
Oh, yeah.
You can go everywhere.
I'm missing, man, I'm
And
missing.
because you're large, you can also
I could also
go to Fair Meadows.
Police department
I'll send you Fair
would police that just the same as policing the no parking, for example, the streets that we have scheduled to get the no parking on the corners or Fane, then the police department would have to ensure that enforce that parking as well.
Yeah, they could look at that on patrol. It's kind of like the fire lanes at the grocery stores and stuff. It's usually enforced when we pull up. We block people, we pulled up and people are parked in the fire lane, we have an emergency there, we just pull up and they get blocked in, we just call the cops.
I wouldn't want to exempt the fire department from having a ticket book right if they go by there and see them.
At night, would because, go back to your picture.
The fire truck,
Yes.
sir?
At night, would they be visible? Because one of these are parked in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So
Cadillac.
the Cadillac is parked in the wrong direction. So, I mean,
Well, it'd be a sticker on the windshield.
okay, but if the truck is coming,
She's not-
the patrol, he's gonna miss one of them if they're both parked in the wrong direction
Well, of course, he could write the Cadillac a ticket anyway.
from being parked in the wrong direction.
It'd be 2 tickets.
Yeah.
One of the things that Chief Brown has
Revenue.
been talking about doing is as he's filled his PSO slots, he has a little bit of an overage or extra manpower during certain times of the evenings. he's looking at using his PSOs then, his extra PSO, to do some traffic enforcement activities during that window. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, of how we can try to address some of the violations that already exist out there with parking.
I don't hear a whole lot of people complaining about it. And I happen to live in a neighborhood that it is an issue. And when I drive down my street, I pull over, they come through, I'll pull over, we wave at each other, and it's not an issue. There are, and at nighttime, they do, crowd more on the street. Like I said, those people live in those neighborhoods and they're dealing with it. And if the emergency vehicles can come through and it's not a safety hazard, then the only solution up there that I think is viable is the 90%. That means there has to be neighborhood buy-in. The neighbors themselves see a problem and they're willing to address that problem together in that certain area with their neighbors in their community. So as far as a citywide permit, it's who does that? What whole city permits a car? And then having to keep up with it, and everybody has to register, and you sell a car, you get another sticker, you have to scrape that sticker off, someone has to enforce it, you get people...
You don't scrape them off, you lift them off, put them on another car.
Well,
Most
I'm
colleges
only
use
talking
that now.
about specific streets.
Well, that's fine,
with-
that's fine, I'm talking about, and if there's community buy-in, that's fine. But if there's not community buy-in, that means the people who live there don't see an issue. And we shouldn't be micromanaging
Safety?
the people. No, I said as far as safety goes, that is green lighted.
And she said if it was a safety issue.
Yeah, but what they said is that when they go down there, it looks tight, but you sometimes don't know you have a problem till you have a problem. So the other night, when they had the fire, they discovered all sorts of things, and they're in the midst of a fire, and they don't really have time to email back and to write down and to
You were
make...
able to get through? From what I heard, he was able to get through.
Yeah,
Have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't get through?
Yes.
And what did you do? Go knock on doors?
No, we backed out. Actually, the one I remember the most is when I hit the vehicle. I took his mirror off with the mirror on the engine. But when I tried, it was off of Bain and Carter, I believe. But we turned in, and it was a situation where they were parked on the corners, and it had a little turn in it, and I couldn't make it. And when I tried to back out to go around a different way, which I think at that address, I would have had to back out or go down, turn around, come back down Main Street and back around. It was a house fire.
And that's one of those streets that as a safety precaution, would prohibit some parking restriction. I mean, we would do parking restrictions on that
Yes,
street.
and that
Which means
was,
a small street.
and that was a part.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we run into the problems when they have multiple vehicles.
So the streets,
But he was also parked on that curve where if we'd marked it no parking, that could have been.
yeah, and I've noticed in my neighborhood that they will park right next to a curb, so that when you're turning in, it's very hard to get in. And it's kind of dangerous because you have oncoming traffic, if you're making a left turn. So, in situations like that, safety issues, green light. But as far as, the whole city, and as far as multiple families living in a home and having too many cars, we have ordinances against multiple families living in a home. And we should deal with that issue. And when that issue is dealt with, then the parking issue goes away.
Well, evidently, that issue has not been dealt
For
with because it's
years.
happening.
But that's what we need to concentrate on, is dealing with that issue, not the parking, which is a symptom of the root.
I think that it ought to be addressed, but it's very difficult to address that problem. Multiple families.
Well, it's
The ordinance.
unrelated.
Yeah, what she said.
Unrelated.
The ordinance deals with boarding houses where they're unrelated. If they are related, we cannot regulate that. So you can have multiple generations, but if they're not related, then we do have the ordinances which is boarding houses. That's harder to prove, but we have addressed that when we've been able to. And we have to get evidence then and so forth that was an ordinance that y'all just passed and updated that about 1.5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was, as I can recall at the time where we were having the problem, you can't just go up and knock on the door and ask them how many unrelated people are living in the house. You gotta work around that, and sometimes it takes a while to develop.
And like the rental house registration, that will greatly reduce that.
Yeah.
And that's.
We don't have that.
That's in
We're
the
working
parking
on
lot.
that, and that's
Yeah.
going to be another item that we're really, we've got a lot of information on that. We'll be talking with y'all very soon on that. The permit idea, I mean, if that's something, you want to look at in certain areas.
Well, I think
most
where the problem
cities
is
that have
identified
it-
is.
Cities that have it now are typically in a specific area where they have a problem.
Yeah.
It's not citywide.
Yeah,
I didn't think we were talking
No, I
citywide.
don't think I'd want it citywide, just
No.
in the areas where you have a problem.
And yeah,
And so who decides which area is permanent? Are you gonna do the 90%, or are you gonna do the city council?
90%
Well, I think-
though,
no.
that's a permanent speed bump, and that tears up cars, it tears up
Well,
fire trucks.
No,
Well,
this
we
is
need an
90%.
ordinance for that.
There's, either the council says it or 90% of the residents can ask.
Well, I think on the permit, we were saying 2/3.
Two-thirds, you could have.
What we were
Yeah,
recommending.
but are you saying residents as in who owns the house, or who's
This
the
is property owners.
most?
That's
yeah,
probably-
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a big difference between whoever's renting it
Yeah.
right now and the property owner.
The logic I had, and again, regarding the 2/3 for the permit on course of action 2, that one was just modeled after what like I think Dallas does that in certain areas was the 2/3. So it doesn't have to be 2/3. That's just what other cities have done. The 90% was the same way we modeled after our traffic calming, but policy can be 75%, 80% as well.
And on the parking permit, when we talked about that before, did we also say that there was a method if someone had guests, that they could get like a guest permit?
Yeah,
temporary
yes.
guest
we said that.
pass or something?
They could swing by
That's how we would-
and
Come by the here.
come by and we would give them some.
So a lot of people live spontaneously. How do you handle
And
that?
then it would be, like, say you have a car and you have a sticker because you're allowed to park there, and you normally park in your driveway, and your friend just shows up without one, then you park in the curb and your friend parks in your driveway.
But I don't want to buy a permit, I park in the driveway all the time.
But it shouldn't be citywide.
I don't want to have a permit.
They don't have an issue on your street.
No, they don't, they have
Yeah.
no issue at all.
Well, I think it just should be a specific
Yeah.
people. You can't get people to get a garage sale
Yeah.
permit, much less anything else. They're not gonna take the time to do it.
And we have an issue with having the entire city with police going all over. Do you know what I saw? I was coming back from Kroger's about 7 o'clock at night. My daughter's in the car. We turn off of Camp Wisdom right onto Hill City North, and I see a car. I'm in the left-hand lane, car in the right-hand lane, stop right around Longworth, and I'm trying to focus on driving. So I asked my daughter, I said, "What is going on?" The car door was open. A girl was crouched on the ground. I'm thinking carjacking or something, because the door is wide open. She said, "Mother, she's urinating." Had her pants down, crouched on the ground, urinating on the street.
That's against the law.
Okay? So, I mean, and that's on Hill City. That's not an off-street over. So, I mean, we've got to have more of somebody driving around checking stuff. I couldn't believe it.
Can we come up, take these item by item and give an indication of what we would like to see, and then we'll give it back to staff and let them bring up consolidated something for us to look at. Don't you think that's the best way to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
I thought that's what we were doing. But are we not doing that now?
Well, I mean, can the fire department come up with a list of,
And they are, yeah, we're
Okay.
doing, their
Based
that's a
on the
continual
list,
basis,
we
I think,
decide.
as I put in my update to you, we've already identified a number of streets, intersections, and one street. We've sent the letters out. In some of those cases, we got no response back or positive response, so we're moving forward with signing those. You got negative responses back from 2 areas, Hollywood Park and
The Willow
and
Run.
Willow Run. So he is going to have a hearing on February 13th to hear those comments and then make his determination after that. But, and as they identify areas, we will address it that same way.
Does that seem fair? You want to do something else?
But what I am hearing from y'all is that you're interested in the idea of the parking permit program. And,
On select streets.
Select streets.
okay,
but I don't think we'll get 90%.
well, what we would do then is write up, we would write up the
You're
ordinance
telling me I can't park.
like this, where it can be by petition or by direction of council. Once we have that ordinance in place, then you as the council can identify certain areas and say, we want to put the parking permit in place in this area.
Because what you also have is, you have, in Fair Meadows, we found probably at least 3 or 4 of them, where they'll have a roofing company that rents one of those houses, and all their workers are in there, and they all have cars. And so you think they're going to agree to that? No, they
That's
won't.
what I'm saying.
Well,
We're not gonna
we
get
can
it.
overrule
Right,
that.
so that's. and
Yeah,
that's
but I
one-
mean, that's part of what you've got going on there. They've even built huge buildings in the back to put shingles in and all sorts of stuff, so.
Now, if you also have an interest in the third option, the no parking, then we can include that as well as another option, or you just want to leave it right now at the permit level and see how that works.
I like the permit.
Well, I mean, you can always also include in there then that a petition of 90%. I don't think I don't think neighborhoods are gonna come in and want a petition for a complete no parking area. But if you wanted to look at that, we could write that in there, but.
Natalie Clay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that they would, because then they can't park there either. That's one of the things we were talked about, was if we were to go in and declare it as a no parking, then that would negatively affect the other owners. So I think they'd be
permit.
more interested in the permit process.
Does the fire department have a street that they think should be no parking?
The only no parking on one side of the street we found was at Fane, going down Fane by Fair Meadows Apartments. We couldn't get through there at all.
Well,
And that was
we
the
can
one-
include that, maybe put no parking in.
Oh, we already are.
Well, we already
Yeah,
are.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's-
That's what
We're mailing out those notices that we're
Yeah.
doing it, so they'll be, the curb will be painted and signs will go up the week of the 12th.
Good.
Fane, and then at Blue Ridge. Now, in the neighborhoods, we weren't gonna post signs, just paint the curbs red. Now, for something like the permits, then we ended up putting signs at the entrance to that part of the neighborhood saying permit parking only, and from, I guess the sign forward.
That seems to be a good compromise, that you're not, we're going to provide for the safety of the citizens. And,
That's what it's about.
Absolutely.
And like I said, our main concern is the time. So
Yeah.
if we paint those curves just enough where they won't park all the way down there, that helps us out tremendously.
Yeah, because I was driving a Prius and could barely get down the street, and I thought, oh my gosh.
how much room do you need trying to breathe?
Something
Don't
maybe
tempt
to-
You don't have to go over there.
I could take somebody out.
You can't drive on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But I'm
Something-
just looking at this going, oh my gosh.
Oh, I was just saying, something to think about.
Yes, they got notifications. All of the areas got notifications, letters, and the opportunity to respond.
I like a cost analysis too. How much is it gonna cost to permit? I mean, obviously, we're not gonna be in a whole city, but how much is it gonna cost for to develop the program?
When I just looked up, to get like real official stickers that we could register and make sure, do our best to sort of avoid counterfeit, those stickers are like $3 a piece, and those hanging cards are $3 a piece. So you're starting to look at, maybe $20 per household per year, and then we'd have to really start looking at volumes of cars to see the effects on FTEs.
And who
on
would
the
maintain it?
personnel
Would
that
it
we-
be like in the water department, or would it be where you?
Well, I think as staff, we would have to figure out the best place to manage that program. And we would definitely have to examine, the volume of cars based on level of interest of the neighborhoods to see the impact on
Yeah,
staff.
I think, if we don't have a whole lot of areas, it shouldn't be a big impact on staffing, but if it starts to be more of an administrative workload on us, then we'll need to look at that and then probably try to figure out what's the point, how much do we need to charge for the permits to pay for the admin overhead and costs that are part of administering.
Well, my thought was if you came in hard at first and you got people to get in the habit of not doing it and being aware of there's an issue, that maybe they would stop. They'd find somewhere else to park or not have 15 cars in front of a 2-car frontage, because I bet you there's some issues over there on, who gets home first and gets the parking and who gets none. I don't know, and I sure don't invite hearing about it, but I bet you there is. You get off first and you get the parking place, and then
The lots in Fair Meadows are 50 feet wide. So you've got a drive and a drive approach, which can take up 20 feet.
and that's it.
So you're going to park legally, you're going to park one car in front of the house that they may squeeze down, and then 2 in the driveway. Because nearly all those garages are closed in, or full of stuff. Yeah. But nearly all of them are an extra bedroom.
And 5 more cars.
Okay, do you have any more things that you think the council ought to answer tonight for this particular subject?
I think on the on-street, I think we can go girls' direction. Okay.
All right, so again, the next section of it was dealing with residential lot parking. And again, I've got 2 photos just to show you to, again, sort of reorient you to the situation. So again, this is a house. Again, the ordinance right now is 5 vehicles that are visible. In rear parking, you are currently allowed to park on unimproved areas. So the purpose of this is to give you an example of this is allowed right now. Another example of this is allowed right now. 5 visible cars. They're all on the driveway and they're not encumbering the right of way. If we had a sidewalk there, that white van would be, illegally parked. But in this case, again, but this is allowed. So again, just to relook at your current authorities. We do have a authority regulate ordinance in place regarding the quantity of vehicles. So it's 5 vehicle maximum on a residential lot.
Is that 5 that you can see?
That visible. Visible, and then less if there's physical limitations. So on that previous slide I showed you where that white van was in front, if there had been a physical limitation, i.e. the sidewalk, then that particular house would have been limited to 4 legally. They can petition the building official to allow a +1 up to 6. Again, there's no maximum if the vehicle is shielded from view from the public street, alley, right-of-way, or adjacent properties. So it's a 360 degrees. So if the neighbor can see them, that would not count. But otherwise, again, we don't peek over the fence. And then in the case where you have a vacant lot that abuts the primary dwelling, you can have a 3 vehicle maximum, provided it's on a improved surface. So if I have an extended lot and I put in like a concrete pad, then I can park 3 vehicles on that pad. Now, regarding unimproved surfaces, so the rear yard you can park on unimproved surface, which was that first picture I showed you. The side yard you can park on an unimproved surface if it's screened from the road, and then the front yard you cannot park on an unimproved surface. Now, if you have a gravel lot that's been around, then that is grandfathered in. So that does occur still. But the main thing is no parking on the grass in the front yards. And we've already talked about the, again, we do have authorities regarding size and type of vehicles, but we talked about in the previous portion of the brief. So here are the options for parking. So we restrict residential parking to only on improved surfaces. So that takes away folks parking in the grass in their side yards or in their backyards unless they have a driveway. There is a zoning ordinance that all homes and duplexes provide 2 parking spaces on the lot. I have a meeting with Mr. Hager tomorrow to talk about retrograding or going back because, for example, up in Fair Meadows, originally the 2 parking for that lot was one in the garage and one in the driveway. And you do see where they widen the driveway to accommodate, to maintain the 2, but the single driveway is not an exception. It's still common. But again, I've got to get with Mr. Hager tomorrow and see what we can do in terms of those folks that just converted the garage and there it sits. And then just another idea was relook, how many cars are visible based on the lot size. So again, duplexes, 2 cars, single families, the lot mins, they're the R1.4. A good example of that is Fair Meadows area. So it would go from 5 cars allowed in the front and visible to 4. Now again, that's not necessarily going to pull them. It's going to push them on the road.
Well, cars in Fair Meadows, they would have to. The whole front yard would have to be a driveway.
Well, it's 50 foot wide.
They're
4 cars.
no, the ordinance.
Because their houses are closer to the street and they're not as wide.
The ordinance has specific requirements. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Don't we have an ordinance where you can't concrete so much?
Yes, ma'am. So there's one percentage like in your front yard, and then you can pave a little bit more in the backyard, but nowhere do we allow just turning everything into concrete. But they do have that ability to get a little bit more. I don't remember how much of the front yard. I don't think it's more than half. I just don't recall. But again, it's just some things to look at. Then again, just going all the way down. And then, like I said, for the planned development, we have certain areas that are PDs, not like zone Rs, and then those would just be evaluated on lot size if someone comes with a planned development.
And you want us to,
Well, this is the point of discussion where we need your all's input. Is do you want to leave it the way it is? Do you want to address the unimproved surface parking, or do you want to, or do you want to address the numbers of vehicles allowed on the lot?
What kind of complaints are we getting on this issue from the public?
You get some.
What are they?
Usually cars in backyards.
And they're complaining because they don't look good? When driving down the alley, they don't like the way it looks as they're driving
Or
down?
driving down the street.
But you have an ordinance that's saying 5 is maximum in the back.
Well, five is visible,
total
sir.
on the lot.
Visible.
So
Yeah,
what you'll see a
total
lot is
lot.
maybe 2 in the front driveway, but then where they have the problem is the 3 in the back. And now vehicles, this is vehicles, so vehicles by our definition is boats and campers as well. But again, that's really where people have a problem is has to do with what's in the backyards, visibility,
and I get calls too about the front yards though and the side yards because it looks trashy. Having cars parked on grass.
Well, in the front yard, it is not allowed to be parked on.
What about the side yard?
Side yard, they can be if it's screened from the right of way.
Well, all I gotta say is we got a whole lot of cars parked on unimproved surfaces that are visible and no one's saying anything. I mean, they're not getting ticketed or coded or whatever.
We are addressing them with code as we see them. Now, again, if they have a gravel driveway, they can do that. And on
Correct.
our ditch, that's street parking, they can park onto the yard there parallel to the street. But that's considered on-street parking, so they can do that.
I do a lot of walking, in my walk routes, I would see cars parked on grass in the side. A lot of times, if you don't have an alley and your driveway, your garage is in back, but you go down the driveway and you turn into the garage, people will go ahead and park outside of the turnaround apron.
Side entry garages, is what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
However, since we've staffed up in code enforcement, they've kind of disappeared, so yeah.
Maybe
And
they could get
I would
the
turn
money.
some in, and now they're just disappearing.
Good for you, Dennis.
What are the numbers, the R 1.4, 1.8, 2.2, what is all that?
Those 1,400 square foot house, minimum.
That's
Zoning,
what
zoning
it's
district.
districts.
Zoning, it's the
It's a
zoning
zoning
category.
That's, yeah, multiply that by 1,000.
Okay.
That's the size, minimum size of the house that can be built in an area.
And that's tied to like the zoning map over on the wall.
So are you happy, pretty happy with what we've got now, or?
Sounds like it's being
I'm,
enforced.
I'm afraid that if we
Yeah.
prohibit any parking on the grass, like in the rear yards, it's gonna be more cars out on the street. So
Yeah, I think you enforce that, yeah.
Let's tackle the street first, and then if this becomes a problem, then we go after it.
Well, if code would pick up, like in my district, please, then that's probably true. But it's
Well, I think
really
now-
after 5 that
Now
when
that
they
they're
get
full
home.
staff, I mean, they're out working, so.
I think the problem is that it's normally after 5.
We're working on flexing schedules and hours and days. But if you see him, take a picture and send it in, we can address it. Or have someone take a picture and send it in, that's all we need.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay,
turn
say
stuff
that-
into Paul, it just happens.
Paul? Direct,
Show your code
okay.
enforcement thing.
They won't let me have one, but
I want a hat.
I don't blame.
You get a hat.
I've got to say that I called, I was out with a resident, and I called to report a problem. And like within 5 minutes, the city manager, assistant city manager was there. And I'm just like, man. And just checking out the trash on the street.
So if I called you about somebody urinating on the street, would you be there immediately?
that'd be a police department. I mean,
Ah.
But my point being, that's where you would, that would be the agency to call. But, you know, I got to say we're not enforcing everything. We had a junk motor vehicle call yesterday. They were in their driveway and they had a junk motor vehicle and they're frustrated because they got a ticket. Or not a ticket, but a warning.
A warning?
Well, they have to get it we give them time to get it fixed, to get it addressed. But they have so much time. But that was a complaint. They didn't like getting that, so we're starting to field those. And y'all will field those.
Yeah.
I can tell you,
It'll be-
Hollywood Park will not be happy, so you guys can let them know that. I won't.
No, we've already decided Patrick's going to.
Well, that's another area, very narrow lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got the laydown curb, so they
Yeah.
don't have a driveway.
That's
coming out
worse.
either.
And that's, yeah, Hollywood Park in itself has a lot of issues too. The narrow lots, the driveways are not very deep even, so you park 2 cars, one of them's in that, or even someplace
They're
where one car
blocking the
is
sidewalk, yeah.
blocking the sidewalk, so.
And with those lay down
It's not
curbs,
lit
they'll
down.
pull up and park halfway on the lot and halfway in the street
Yeah.
to widen the street a little bit, so you got a problem with it.
It's a cute neighborhood.
Mission Hill's another one
Yeah.
like that too, it's a problem.
But back to back, that street's 27 feet wide. A lot of people don't believe that, but those streets are the same width in Fair Meadows as in the neighborhood that you and I live in.
You're kidding.
Same width.
So what's the problem?
More cars per house.
And it's just car after car after car.
I don't know, drive up and
I don't
down
know how
my
they
street
park.
at night, you can hardly
You
get
know how
up
they
and
do
down.
it.
People got the garage full, they're not taking the garage in, they just got it full of junk. And don't want to waste the time to have to drive down the
Well,
back
they don't wanna drive down
alley,
there.
park in the back
And it's
driveway.
easier to walk right in the front door.
Yeah, and
Sure.
You mentioned earlier, you live on a very long block, and it's awkward to go down and drive down the alley to come to your house.
That's right.
I mean, you do, but a lot of people don't.
Spitfire.
So, but, I wish we'd outlaw lay down curbs. Make them put in standard curb. That's just,
Tell Greg,
I got one.
He's got 4 new concrete.
you ain't got a curb.
I do too.
Do you?
Ask Mr. Schwartz.
I've seen it.
Okay.
Lay
I
down
found
the
out.
regular curve.
A regular curve. They did not curve my area, and Mr. Schwartz made sure with the water running from the city off the street that I got a curve.
The city paid for it?
Years ago, well, they could have been sued. I had an attorney calling me trying to get me to sue them, the
86
city.
or 87, something
Yeah.
like that.
And so it was either sue the city or they gave me a curve. Because it was water from the city.
Yeah,
That was
okay, the
coming
city
out.
had responsibility.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's the reason they did it.
Thank you.
So what I'm hearing then is that on the on-property parking, we'll just leave it everything as it is right now.
Until after we see the.
See
See how things go.
It's gonna happen. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's what we need. Okay.
Want me to continue? Okay. So the second brief is on the street maintenance discussion. So I put some maps out for everybody, and I'll refer to them in the brief. But I just want to make sure you all have those handy. So again, just a little bit of background. So back in FY15, as you know, we had a pavement management assessment conducted for all our roads. And you see the bar chart below, but right now we had an average in FY15, an average pavement condition index of 67.44, which is fair. So we presented to council some different options to help us with our budgeting, and the council approved the option C, the one with the circle, of 75 arterial, 65 local, and 60 in the alleys. And we determined that cost, in order to maintain, to achieve and then maintain that goal or the target PCIs, would cost $3.5 million a year. So the first slide I would like for you all to look at real quick. If you look at the packet, you'll see that there's one set of maps that are stapled together, and then you have the loose map. The one I want to highlight right now is the one that's stapled together, because what I want to do is sort of walk you through 16, the work we did in 16, then overlay. What you'll see is the first map is what we did with the $550,000 of road maintenance, excuse me, that we did in FY16. And then when you go to the second map, you'll see it's 16 and 17. And what I'm trying to do is show you how we're sort of coloring in the city per se. And that was with another 586,000. And then the last one is the overlay that shows the everything we did in 16. I'm sorry, 16 and 17, as well as what we have programmed for 18. And the specifics of 18 we'll look at on the other map I gave you. But again, FY18 is when we really started the push to get closer to our target of 3.5 million. And so this year, we took some money out of fund reserve, some money out of the innovation fund, along with our normal fund to get us to the $2.2 million. The follow-on numbers reflected a street maintenance fee that we had brought up as an option back at the budget season, with a target of $1.7 million to raise $1.7 million, which is basically to get us halfway to the target. but the idea was to sort of incrementally get there so it's not such a shock. We have yet to implement the street maintenance fee, but again, this slide is just carryover from August briefing and to show you where the funds would be coming from, subject to a street maintenance fee, and then of course, the exact amounts would be, subject to policy established by council. So again, this is the next two slides correlate to the map that I gave you, which is the single map, and that's just outlaying our plan for this year. I think that's something that would be good for you guys as a reference. This is how we're spending the $2.2 million that you authorized us for this year. But again, I just wanted to give you some background to show you. I don't think we had the context of the previous years. It wouldn't really tell the story, but it really illustrates the level of effort that we can achieve with the $2.2 million.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Explain surface treatment.
Okay, sir. So what we have in a particular case is a chemical process that we apply over a, say, a tired road. And then it's not a full surface like the mill and overlay. So it's just a treatment we put on it and extends the life of a road up to 7 years.
And the mill and overlay?
Mill and overlay is a 20-year, extends the road 20 years.
So the reason the surface treatment is more because we're doing more streets?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay.
And just a little bit of how we're integrating this. The streets that have been identified here were a product of the ViewWorks program and that pavement condition assessment that was done in 15. And so the computer, we ran it. They nominated the projects for 18, and then we looked at 19 as well, because once we started deconflicting some wastewater projects, we had to push some projects to the out years, and then we brought some projects forward so that we could get everything, get the street maintenance done this year. But what we didn't want to do is blindly adhere to the prescription from the program and then turn around later and cut up roads that we just, I don't want to go and dig up a road that has a 20-year lifespan left on it. And a normal progression for a road is pave it, crack seal it, you microsurface it, and then you overlay. And then the idea is we maintain those to keep the highest readiness so that we can avoid CIP, which is significantly more expensive.
Surface treatment is not on the legend unless I'm looking at the wrong map. Which streets are surface?
It's microsurface HA5 is the treatment. There are two different kinds of treatments, microsurfacing and HA5. Microsurfacing is an application that gives us a 3 to 5 year lifespan on a surface. And the good thing with that is it's very quick turnaround, so we can restore that road to full operational capability very quickly in a few hours. HA5 has up to as a 5 to 7 year lifespan. Price is the same, but the curing is a 24-hour process. So we've targeted a few areas for HA5, but those are areas that have alley access, so that when we close a road for a day, it would have minimal impact on the residents. So, but again, those are just the two options. Either one is a material that we apply over the surface that again extends its life. And the other highlight, again, you probably saw in the legend, the dash lines. So we do have, we kept back roughly a 10% contingency, subject to, these are our estimates, so it's just subject to bid, and some of these are based very more quantity oriented, like the crack sealant and the pavement lifting. But as we progress through the project and we find that we're not using the contingency, we have projects that are already identified as options that we can start awarding, so that in the effort to maximize our efforts for the year. And I'll just go to the south, because again, it's just to highlight the other side. Unless y'all want to look at the dollar split out, I can keep it on the other slide a little bit longer. That would help. Okay, so again, the discussion points that we were talking about is, do we want to proceed with the street maintenance fee in FY18? I know we've got the stormwater fee coming up shortly. And I know there's some other things that have come up in council and whether or not this was something y'all wanted to continue to pursue this year. So again, that was one of the topics for discussion. And the second one is, are we still comfortable with if we do want to proceed, or even if we push, or do we still comfortable with the incremental increase that we talked about back in July, which was the target of 1.75, and then slowly work towards the optimal, which is 3.5.
Why don't you go back to that slide now with the cost?
So the cost line.
So you may recall that a couple of months ago when we were doing the financial report, we reported that we had some unexpected revenues for FY17. So Richard has gone in and looked at, and we're in the middle of the audit right now, but in looking at his numbers, where we ended FY17 in actual expenditures was about $1 million under what we had budgeted. And on our revenue side, we came in about $400,000, $500,000 above what we expected to have in revenues. So we will have, I'll go to the slide
Yeah,
with the
this is not
dollars.
the right slide.
Slide with the dollars.
This way.
So what we have, in looking at it, we feel pretty comfortable right now that for FY19, we can probably peel off about $1.4 to $1.7 million and apply it to street maintenance for FY19. So if you don't do the street maintenance fee, we will still be able to do probably with about 2.2 million, so it's equivalent to this year's street maintenance, with the normal 500,000 that we typically budget, and then taking about 1.4 to 1.7 out of the fund reserves, out of expected fund reserves, and putting that to street maintenance. If you wanted to defer action on how we fund street maintenance going forward, so in other words, get another year down the road. As Greg mentioned, we've talked with you before about the drainage fee. We're making some significant changes in the drainage fee calculations. It will not affect the residential, but it will affect the commercial side. And on the commercial side, some of those businesses will see a significant increase in their drainage fees and their monthly drainage fees. But we're very low compared to all of the other cities that have those drainage fees, so it's not, the businesses that do have multiple locations, I mean, they'll be used to that. But when you consider that you're already hitting them with an increase in the drainage fee, and then one of the options that we looked at in the street maintenance fee was putting more of that burden on the commercial side and less on the residential, that would be another hit to them in the same year. And I don't know that you would want to do that. Now, there's other options as well for funding street maintenance that we've talked about before as well. So anyway, I just wanted to be able to put that out to you. And as we've said before, we'll do as much street maintenance as we have funds to do. But we think in FY19 we could probably do about 2.2 million as it stands right now without any kind of fee or changes.
In looking at this, we're trying to recruit, we're trying to build commercial as well as all of our business. And it seems to me that we don't want to get too unfriendly for businesses. And we're already going to hit them pretty hard. And if we could use that 1.5 million and delay anything else and get fairly well accomplished what we need to do, I think that's the direction we ought to go.
So leave it as it stands.
Leave it as it stands and use the 1.5 or whatever that figure is going to come out to be in-street maintenance to offset a bunch of that fee this year, and when we get down to where we have to do it, then we probably have to do it. But I think we can get by another year without doing it.
We'll get by, and we'll get by, and even if we don't do it, we'll get by. We'll do $500,000 a year like we've always been doing, and the streets will continue to degrade, but, you know, some of us won't be around when we have to replace the streets. What I'm interested in is putting something in place that for best practices that preserves this fund and this program for the future, so it can't be played politics with. And what the street maintenance fee does is it establishes a fund that cannot be robbed. Only that money that goes into that street maintenance fund goes to street maintenance. It can't go anywhere else. If we're going to take it out of general fund, and we're not going to have this fund, the street maintenance fund, then some years you'll get councils that will step up and do infrastructure, and some years you won't get councils that will step up and do infrastructure because it's not it's not glamorous. So my interest is putting, even if you start off with a nominal fee, $2, $3, you start the street maintenance fund, you get this dedicated fund that's only for streets, so that in the future, Duncanville streets are maintained and we don't have the situation that we have now where we have failed streets. That's
Well, one of the things I think we're doing, Leslie, is we're playing a bunch of catch-up right now
Yes, we
to
are.
get the thing. But if we can continue until we have to do something, in other words, it's pretty covered. And let's recover from some of these big increases we're giving the commercial end of it right now, before we slap something else on them. That's my...
Like I said, it could be nominal, but I don't want to lose the momentum.
Right now with your water and garbage fees going up the way they're going up,
Yes.
any nominal thing is big to folks.
Richard, can you answer something for me? FY17, we got 586, then 18, we got 523, and then it stays that. So that's 63,000 that went where?
Well, that essentially was what we were pulling from the general fund for street maintenance on a historic basis. And we really moved that down based on the proposed street maintenance fee, that if it generated that, we could lower that amount coming out of the general fund a little bit.
But if we don't, then we're gonna have to go back up.
If we don't, again, we've got FY18 budgeted. We've got enough money that we can cover FY19. It would be 20 and beyond.
Okay.
It's not funded.
All right, so that's why in FY18 and 19 in the innovation, we got $1 million and $1.3 million and nothing in the others?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, eventually we got to do something,
Sure.
or we'll be like the water.
And I also want to point out too, that what is showing in the out years as well is even with the street maintenance fee, we still have an unfunded portion. That light blue is unfunded. So when we have a system that's telling us we need to be spending $3.5 million per year to get to that desired pavement condition index, we're not hitting that. So that means that we're still not getting where we want to be, and we'll continue to tail off of that PCI. Now, we're going to plan on doing the pavement management study again in a few years to see where we stand and see where we're at and what the maintenance we have been doing. So any amount that we can increase towards street maintenance is going to get us in a better position than where we were.
Tell me what the implications are if the Texas legislators cap our ad valorem taxes
Bad.
for this program.
For this program, it'll probably be a reduction, and we'll probably end up going back to the 500,000 level on street maintenance, but and then we're going to see.
I mean, what does that do to our general fund if they cap?
Well, we've been averaging the last few years 5-6% on property tax appraisal increases. So if they cap it at 2.5%, then that's gonna, decrease our growth in revenues. We've been seeing growth in sales tax, which has been good. But then too, we're also seeing growth on the expenditure side with everything that happens,
So we won't have the money in the general fund.
We'll be eating into the fund balance more, I think. If we want it, or we have to reduce the level of service. across the board.
Or we do.
Oh, we can cut back in other areas. That's something that we've not talked about. There are other areas.
That's what I just said, we should reduce the level of
Yeah,
service.
but I mean, this
in
is
other
sort of
areas.
naive to say we won't have any money, well, the sky's falling, the sky's falling. No. What we've done in the past is there's other areas. Sometimes when you need to spend more here, just like everybody does, you cut back here or here. And I can remember in the past when we sent back budgets and asked them to shave departments and cut back. And it can be done. And as far as like setting a policy for the future, any future council can change the policy and can change the way it's spent. It's not setting anything in concrete.
But it sets it into a trajectory and gives it momentum. And it's very hard to make up $3 million.
Greg, do you or Jackie, off the top of your head, I know you don't have a map, some of the streets that we're not doing because we're pending some water improvements? Obviously, Green Tree is one of them, but what are some of the others? Green Tree's a pretty long
Right,
street.
very.
Portion of Main Street, right?
I don't recall, sir. But we looked at so many road segments.
Well, I mean, you've got,
Yeah.
you've got money in the water fund to start doing some water projects.
Yes.
A part of that could go towards fixing the street when the water's done.
Yes,
And,
that's correct, that's a joint project.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because it's gonna have to be repaired after they finish the water.
yeah,
Right.
I was just wondering how big an impact that's gonna have on, on your overall map.
On this particular,
Well, you've got, I don't know how much money you're planning on spending this year on water and sewer improvements.
about 6 billion.
But I know, I haven't seen them, but I know you got projects lined
Yes.
up.
Yes, sir.
And you're dodging those projects with these street projects.
Yes, we've already reconciled the proposed street list to our water and wastewater improvements, that we plan to do now in the near future. And so we're stepping, to make sure that we don't repair roads.
Well, sure,
and have to-
yeah. Yeah.
So some of the street projects will get pushed out a little farther so that it lines up with the water wastewater CIP or the water wastewater
Water
maintenance, right.
wastewater CIP pays for some of the streets.
Well, yeah, and we can use some of those funds, but I mean, that's not gonna cover this full amount.
Oh, no, I know that, but I'm looking at this map and I know there's some drastic improvements that need to be made because the streets are falling apart that we're not touching. But the reason the streets falling apart is we've had so many water breaks. So if we can fix the water breaks, get a new line in, then the street can get fixed.
That's true.
The
Yeah.
Green Tree happens to be on one of the walk around, so I see it all the time.
Built over an old creek, ran through there. Well, what's your consensus on this? We seem to.
I agree
I
with
like what you said, man.
you. Me too. I agree with you.
We're gonna have to pay, things are so uncertain right now, you don't know what's gonna happen. You read that maybe the growth of your tax that we've been receiving is gonna decline if the housing drops off or whatever. But on the other hand, we were so far behind south of the Trinity, it may not drop off as much this end of Dallas that the other end might drop off, where the houses are, to me, overpriced. But we don't know that. There's just a lot of unknowns. You don't know what the governor's going to be able to get through, whether he's going to be able to hold to this 2.5%. I think one given is that if we can increase the business in Duncanville, that's going to be a big plus to us, especially on the sales tax. That's the two major revenues that you've got coming in. So to me, I think we'd be safe waiting another year, but you can't put it off. But as long as we can more or less identify some excess funds that we've got from windfalls or whatever, I think that we probably could put it off another year and then take a look at it. But we're going to have to closely monitor this.
I'm not opposed to putting it off, but I wonder if all of these funds ought to be put toward streets, the excess. I mean, that's a question we need to look at. Do we have some other needs that some of this money can go to?
So what?
Well, we could,
Whatever, I think you're saying whatever fund has a surplus, then that surplus could go toward this?
well, I think that's what's proposed.
Oh,
We'll put it
right.
all in the streets.
Right. Yeah.
Are streets the only needs that we have in the city?
I think you can't be like set in stone. You have to work with it, just like you do any other budget. It's fluid, and as things happen, you have to take care of it.
It'll definitely be the topic of discussion in the budget,
Yeah,
preliminary budget workshop, is
Yeah.
that, we'll have a better idea then of that fund reserve, how much we think we could peel off for street maintenance compared with other needs that we might want to use fund balance for one-time projects. So that'll be certainly a topic of discussion in June.
And certainly we're going to have to tackle the bond issue if we're going to do some expansion of some things, but you don't want to use M&O money for tied up in a bond issue. That's the last thing you want to do. But what else we got? We just got a lot of variables here right now. So, if it wasn't for the fact that we had the hit that the businesses, especially the larger businesses, are going to take, I would say let's go ahead and do it. But,
So what kind of hit are we talking about?
well, you explain that.
Well, I'll look at Greg, looked at for, on the top end, you're talking about like a Costco. Costco's drainage maintenance, drainage fee was going to go up about
Drainage would be
$350
about 350 to about 450 off the top
Per month.
a month. And then as we were sort of looking at some scenarios, it would probably end up, depending on the scenario we chose, it
We'll
might
just go an
down.
extra time to Costco. Cover that. That doesn't sound like a lot of
Steve
money.
can go with that.
Well, for Costco, it's probably not. They're probably paying that in their other facilities. But then there's some other large businesses as well that are not regional.
You're talking about
type.
stormwater.
Yes.
It's gonna
Well,
go
and the
up.
maintenance, the street maintenance fees were kind of running about the same that we were looking at, and how we would allocate it towards commercial. What we were looking at was reducing it to $6 on the residential per month, putting more on the commercial side, and looking at a methodology to split up those businesses, from small to large, kind of, and so we were coming up with, again, though, it was probably about, if you were to put that on top of the drainage fee, it'd probably be about double, or, about equivalent to the drainage fee. So it could be significant, especially the businesses that are the local businesses were the ones that we're more concerned about.
It's just a balance, okay, now, we still haven't given any direction. What do you want to do?
I agree with you, leave it like it is.
Well, it would be leaving it like it is, it would be shifting some of that money over to the excess money to cover
But
this year.
defer
Or
the discussion on a permanent means of funding to next year or.
Yeah, because I don't think, you're not going to have a permanent means. Each council can change it.
Well, that's true, Johnette, but if you've got it, I haven't seen a council that's coming back and changing the water rates or the sewer rates or anything they don't want to do away with those or change those. And I think this would be another one. Once it's put in place, it would be,
Well, that's really scary then, if if it is put in place and it stays there, because then all you see, number one, is a fee on the water bill. It's a fee. It's really a tax. But you can't, I don't know if you could take that off your income tax or not, because it's called a fee. It's not called a tax.
If it's a fee, no, you could.
It's a tax, and you know it, and I know it. And so the next year, it's just, oh, well, if we just add $5 or $6 more to that fee,
well,
we can bring in this
what's the
much.
federal budget going to look like when they get through putting it on? We don't know what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be
Hey,
allowed.
don't ask me anything about the federal government right now. This is the craziest place I have ever seen in my life, and I just pray every day that something
We were listening to the
good
State of the
happens.
Union.
Well, not yet, it starts at 8.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's,
I think, yeah.
I think it's too easy to hit that and keep going up on it. And yet, it's not really, it is a tax, but it's not called a tax.
Yeah,
So-
but eventually we got to do it or you'll.
Or maybe we shift some other stuff in the budget. We didn't do
Well, no,
that.
you got to come up with 3.5. That's what it is. You got to come up with $3.5 million.
Yes, and there's some other things that, yes. there's some
And
other-
you are absolutely correct. We will balance the budget. It's the state law.
Yes,
So-
that's right, that's right.
It will be balanced.
That's right. And so maybe we don't get as many, what do we call the deals over the baseball field or whatever, you know, there's other things that we're, to me, we don't have to spend on. Well, park needs, so your park needs more than your street needs?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you can't have everything.
I've got 4 votes that say don't do anything this year.
Well, we're not voting.
We're not voting.
Well, we're giving a direction. I said vote. 4.
We're direction.
More
Direction.
votes.
We're directing it.
So, okay.
Okay, so the next topic we want to talk about is about the bonds. And so that kind of mentioned it already, but we wanted to discuss with you further the idea of a bond advisory committee and how you want us to proceed on that. I know we had the discussion in October at your retreat. But we're kind of looking at a November timeframe. So what we wanted to do with y'all today was kind of talk to you about the idea of a bond advisory committee. What we handed out to you was, again, we've made a few changes on this list that we gave to you earlier in October, but this is just for your information. We weren't going to go through this list really, but I wanted to give it to you so you had it to refer to if you needed. I wanted to talk about the idea of a bond advisory committee, and so some of the things that we'd like to get input from you is the idea of a committee. What do you want, assuming you want to put a committee in place, what do you want their charge to be? What do you want them to do? What do you want the committee makeup to look like? Who do you want on the committee? What different, so that you have different viewpoints and so forth, which would kind of then generate the size of the committee, and then also how do you see that people being appointed to the committee or put on that committee. So we'll kind of talk through those things and just kind of want to give you up front what we'll be looking for. So on a timeline, we're looking at a November 6th election, and really the hard date that we're kind of looking at is July, when we have to provide notice to the Texas AG's office on a bond election. We have to be able to give them the projects and the costs of what will be involved in that bond election. So backing up from the July date to where we are now, if the council can establish a bond committee in February and appoint the members in February to where the bond committee could begin work in March, that would give them almost 3 months to be able to take input, work through everything, and provide recommendations to the city council towards the end of May. And then the council can decide from that point, what do you want to do? As far as public input, different ways, you can have the bond advisory committee seek public input, or you could have them provide recommendations to the council, and then the council have a town hall meeting. There's a lot of different ways, and however you want to do that is up to you. But what we would see the bond advisory committee doing then is getting a tour of the city, getting a financial status update from the finance director so that they understand what the capacity is within the tax rate, the different types of bonds that are out there, their interest rates, the terms, so forth. Get an update on the comprehensive plan, the park master plan, so that they know what's recommended in those plans and how that might fit into a potential bond project. Get input from Public Works on the street CIP. This is not streets maintenance. This is the reconstruction of streets, capital projects, facility projects, and as I mentioned, public input. So that's kind of the timeline right now. I think 3 months for a bond committee is adequate time for them to do their work and still provide the council recommendations.
How many times would they meet? Once a week or once
That would probably be up to the committee. I think they would need to meet probably at least twice a month. So that they'd have probably 5-6 meetings or so. And they may want to meet more often.
It would be in the evening, so someone who wants to do.
So when we look at the committee itself then, certainly the purpose of the committee, I think, and this is, where the city council will need to decide, what do you want that committee to do? What is the charge you want to give them? I think that you would probably want to look at the committee as being able to evaluate the community needs and community input and then recommend a prioritized list of projects to the council for a potential bond election. There's different areas that you may want them to focus on, or you may want them to come back to you with, looking at all those areas. Certainly infrastructure, parks, facilities, Main Street are examples. Some of the questions that you may want to consider, that you may want to provide to a committee to be able to answer for you is, or you may want to set these parameters. So this is, again, kind of looking for input or something for y'all to consider. Should a portion of the bond capacity be dedicated to infrastructure, facilities, health and safety type projects? Reason being, and I know y'all had some discussion at your retreat about perhaps issuing some COs for specific types of projects that, you might not necessarily take to the voters because they're the kinds of things that need to be done regardless. And, streets are not.
Do we have a dedicated amount of money that's still budgeted that were for the bonds or COs?
For debt service?
Debt service.
Yes, we do. So we have the debt service portion of the tax rate right now is about $1.3 million a year.
Would 1.3 million be enough to issue COs for, like, say, replace streets, re-roof City Hall, the things that have to be done? Is that enough to complete those?
Sure, you could. And so that kind of gets to the next question there about the bonding capacity and also this question. So one of the things that we've looked at, Richard has talked to our financial advisors, First Southwest, and we've told you before that with our current tax rate, with no increase on the tax rate and our debt service of $1.3 million, we could finance about $18 million in 20-year bonds. So COs would be the same, certificates of obligation. One of the things that we've been talking about is whether the council might want to look at doing something less than that or doing it shorter term. So Richard has talked to them and he has run some numbers for 5-year bonds, 10-year, and did you run 15-year also? Yeah, 15-year. You want to talk about those numbers you ran?
Sure. We're making an assumed interest rate based on today's current rates and hopefully conservative at this point. We could issue $6,175,000 on 5-year bonds and pay them off in 5 years. If we did a 10-year bond issuance, we could issue $11,350,000. And then with a 15-year bond, we could issue $15,600,000 and still not have to raise our tax rate. And then, of course, the 18, almost $19 million if we went with a 20-year.
So this is bond Is that also for the COs?
That's all inclusive. That'd be our total debt.
What's the interest rate?
I'm using 2.5% on the 5, 3% on the 10, 3.25% on the 15, and 3.5% on the 20. I was pretty close with estimating those things, but I was actually contacted our financial advisors and said, tell me what you would estimate rates if we issued in
Has that gone
November.
up in the last year?
It's actually come down just a little bit, at least over what, because I had been using 4.5% previously on 20-year bonds, and so we've reduced that a little bit. And again, I was using a projection at that time based on what the financial advisors were telling me, and interest rates haven't increased as fast as they thought they would. So they're still going up. There's still upward pressure, and I think that the further you go into the future, you're going to encounter some increased rates.
Again, I think we need to do whatever we're going to do in this November election, because another item that the governor had listed was severe restrictions on the issue of COs. In other words, they would like to take away the power of the local governments to issue COs, because it does not have to go to the voters.
But if we do them now, it wouldn't affect us.
That's what I say. I think it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and do by November
Yeah.
whatever we decide to do,
Okay.
because we'll get under before he comes up, if he's able to get all this passed.
And if you wanted to issue COs for a portion of it, you could do those at any time, given the notification requirements and so forth.
But I would rather not issue COs and go ahead and put together a package, because you then would give the voters the opportunity to have a voice in the process. So
then the next question then too is something that you may want to, have a committee look at, is whether it's recommending to the council then whether you should reduce the tax rate, maintain it, or increase the tax rate to fund the recommendations. And I know that was also some discussion that you had previously at the retreat, was if there are certain projects that the public would be interested in with a corresponding tax rate increase. If that's something that you would want a committee to look at, then that could be part of your charge to them. Or you may want to tell them, no, this is the parameters to stay within what we have currently. Again, those are things for you to consider as a council, and what you want to give them up front, or what you want them to answer for you or provide in their recommendations at the end of their time, their charge period. Certainly then the advisory committee should look at the recommendations of the comprehensive plan and what projects would advance the vision of the comprehensive plan, the parks master plan, and then what other needs would you maybe want them to consider and look at.
I certainly would like for us to kind of pattern what we do after what the school district did. They did it right this time. I guarantee you, they had a very active committee. They studied it closely. They had public hearings. And they took that, and I think we certainly would want to give them recommendations of things to work on, of what we need that we've extracted out of the comprehensive master plan and some of the other things. But they need to be your eyes and your voice.
With your $1.3 million that's dedicated to debt service, if we're not going to use it for debt service, what are we going to use it for?
We've
We
been
just talked about
transferring that to the innovation
But you can
fund
only-
and using it for.
On a temporary basis, yeah, we
But
have
that's
that.
temporary.
Right,
You can't do
right.
that.
If you don't do
No, we can't do that forever.
Just
We
do it forever.
need to, we
So
need
what?
to either release that back to O&M
Okay.
or issue debt.
Yeah, so what would you list? O&M would say.
Operations and maintenance,
Yeah,
yeah.
so what would we go to maintenance, street maintenance, 1.3 million?
Well, no, it just go into the general fund.
Well, you could decide what you want to do.
Yeah, there'd be a council decision on what they want to use it for. What we're talking about with 18, almost $19 million is, if we issued that amount of debt, he's talking about the payoff period, what the interest rate would be, and we can do that and still not raise
So if we have
the,
the election in November, that $1.3 million is already set aside to serve, okay.
That's correct. That's why we've reserved it, so that we wouldn't have to make any adjustment with the tax rate.
but I think the school district did it right. They had very active members, and they not only worked closely with the school district and came up with recommendations, and I guess most of them were adopted by the trustees, but then they got out and worked very hard to sell the program. We cannot advertise in any form to push the bond program. It's against the law. So we have to have somebody else that will take up the mantle and go out and do a lot of this.
That's why I think we should do COs on the things that have to be done. We shouldn't leave a leaky roof up to a popular vote. I mean, that's the mandate when we're elected, that's the mandate that we're given, is to take care of infrastructure, take care of city business. And I think taking care of streets and infrastructure and stuff should be tied to the bond. We should just go ahead and do it.
Well,
There's a difference on the kinds of bonds that you can do, some that have to be voted on and some don't.
Well, and another thing, if I'm remembering right, maybe I'm off track, but there's been talk of maybe municipal bonds issued will not be tax-free, but I don't know whether they changed that or not.
We checked on it, the tax laws did not, there was discussion about that having an effect on municipal bonds, but it did not.
Did not go
You said it was on
through. Okay.
special
Well,
revenue
there's a
bonds.
CPA, he would
It
know.
didn't go through.
Yeah.
It didn't go through.
Okay, well, that's good. Because that could affect the rate,
Yeah.
a whole lot.
Yeah.
And while you're
Did they
preparing our
have
tax
place
list.
for some bonds, like airport bonds, special revenue, like concept of this, or?
There was something, but it wouldn't affect, it wouldn't think nothing would affect us.
The new tax law does affect our ability to do advance refunding, meaning that if you try to refund before the bonds are callable, they've taken that out, you can't do that anymore.
So what are these? What is this? I mean, these are staff's ideas of where to spend the money?
Those are potential projects, yes.
And they've extracted a lot of that out of the master plan, the parks master plan, and stuff like that.
Public Works, CIP, and facilities.
Well, I know that we were told by citizens that they didn't want to spend any more on the field house. And we've got that on here. And we've got a lot of street projects on here. And then we've got that, so I see what you're talking about is the method that the school system used, okay? What I don't think we've developed well enough, at least to me, is what it's going for.
Well,
that's what the committee.
That's what the committee will do.
And on the field house, if you look at that list, the big ticket item on there is this idea of a parking garage for the field house. And that's been something that the council has brought up before.
The
So-
council, I'll speak for myself, I think that's coming.
Well, some have brought it up, so
I brought
it's
it up.
just thrown out. Now, but that's why this bond advisory committee would look at all of these different things and take citizen input and provide to you a list of recommendations by priority of what could be included. And then the council, you will have the ultimate say on that to decide, well, maybe you want to raise that and say, well, we don't want to fund this, we're going to move the bar up here, or well, we want to move these around. But you're having the committee do a lot of that work up front and prioritize things for you to look at. But ultimately it's up to the council to make that decision.
unless you give them a list to start with, they're going to be lost.
You know what, I told you, I've talked to a lot of people on these committees, and what they're saying to me is, they think when staff comes in there with something like this, that they're supposed to go, okay,
I don't believe that.
Well, I don't care if you believe it, they're telling me that. They feel like that, that's the way they're being directed to go.
These are inputs to a committee, because that's what we do as a staff. We're the ones that know what streets need to be done. We have the CIP put together, we know what the issues are.
Maybe
with
they
the
don't want to do
facility.
streets,
Then that's where it comes to the policymakers to make that decision.
but they don't seem to understand that they have the, that they can say, no, we don't do this, we want to do something else.
I think the school district committees did that on several
Well,
areas.
yeah, I was on that committee,
Yeah.
and we did, it was, you know, we were given the schools that, you know, had the, as far as like when they come in, they don't have the second or the safety thing. We were given all that, and so we decided from a committee what we were gonna do this school, what we were gonna do that school. Athletics was totally put off the table, because I guess they had just done something, you know, something before that for the athletic complex. But we were given, I guess, needs that needed to be addressed, and then we met. I mean, no one from the school board,
Staff?
nobody was there telling us. I mean, we looked at it and we decided, because I was on that committee. I mean,
But you had a list like that.
Yeah, we had a list. We had a list, and you know, based
There's
on
other needs besides this.
based on the recommendations, based on the recommendations of the age of the school, the biggest thing was safety. Because there were some schools that once you walked in, you were in the building. There wasn't a second door to stop you. And so those kind of things, like the husband said, went up higher than some other things. So, but they gave us all that. And then, you know, we met, I think we met weekly, you know, to get ready for the, to put it out for the voters. And then it was done then.
There was no staff.
Well, I don't think that's what he said. The staff has to be there to give the presentation and explain what these projects are and answer questions.
Yeah, they
But
gave.
we're not ranking it for the.
Yeah, I mean, the initial, when they gave all this to us. But then when we started meeting, you know, they weren't there. They weren't there.
We weren't there.
Well, somebody's got to give them the presentation on the comprehensive plan, the parks plan, and explain these things. Now, if the committee doesn't want any input from staff, well then, I guess that's up to you. But I don't know where they're going to get their questions answered then.
Well, I think questions
I
are
guess I'm not
different.
understanding what the issue is.
The
Why
issue
you don't want
is
staff there.
being directed in a certain direction
Well,
rather than feeling like that they can say, I don't like any of this. I want to do, you know, something different.
That is their charge, and if you appoint people on the committee that understand the process, then I don't think you're going to have an issue with them not expressing their
And I think that
opinions.
may be, that can solve her concern, because I don't know if your presentation will eventually get to who's going to be appointed.
That's the next slide. You wanna
Okay.
go to
All right,
it?
well, I mean, no, if we're not through here, then I'll wait till we get there.
What we'd like to do is to have an item on the next agenda next week for you to establish the bond advisory committee. With that resolution, that would also establish the charge to the committee. If you feel like this is sufficient to establish that charge and these are the kinds of questions you want the committee to answer, then we'll include that into that resolution that establishes the committee. If you want to make changes to that, that's what I'm asking for input now, so that we can put that item together and get it started. Yeah, the thought is for the council to establish the committee at your next meeting in February, and then be able to appoint people to the committee by this, by the second meeting in February.
So on the impact on the potential impact on the city tax rate, are we thinking about a splash park? And if you vote for the splash park, your rate will go up this much, and or you know, individual items. Or you think about a whole package, but with a whole package, your rate will go up this much. Splash park, the streets, the.
I think you may have to break it down, but you wouldn't want to put each item as an individual item. I don't think that'd be too hard for the public to go through.
I think
Every item.
And I think that would be a question for the council to answer once you see the recommendations of the advisory committee, and you may want to break them up into park-related bonds, infrastructure bonds, as opposed to all one. But that's a strategy that you as council will need to decide how you want to approach that.
So council decides that, not the bond?
I think you can have them give you a recommendation, but yes, the council would be the ones to decide that.
But we were going to try to not increase the tax rate.
Not do what?
Increase
Not
the
increase the tax.
tax
Well,
rate.
this would not be an increase in the tax rate. You can issue 18 to 19 million dollars, whether they're COs or whether they're general obligation bonds, without increasing the tax rate.
This is 39,139.
That's a broad list. They're gonna have to, they'll have to
So
cut
this
that down.
is it. So you're not saying this is it? That's what I asked.
No, that's just a list of suggestions
That's just a,
that
It's a wish
needs that
list.
are been seen.
Weeds
and
list?
They're gonna have to
Wish.
make a decision.
Wish list.
Wish list.
Yeah, because there's a whole lot of street projects on here and drainage projects.
But I think these streets are ones that have failed.
these
One of
are,
these is in my neighborhood.
these are all
But
reconstruction.
why aren't they on the
Because they're-
street
they're not.
now?
They're not part of, these are streets that are beyond maintenance.
Yeah,
They
it's
have
past
to
the
be
maintenance.
reconstructed.
You
They
gotta
gotta be
rebuild the
rebuilt.
street. and
So that's a capital on Ridge Street.
And so,
They're not in enough.
Yeah.
And are this portion of, as far as the gateways for 67 and 920, or is this just, once some money is coming from the construction and what they're doing, so this is an addition to what?
This would
Okay.
be the non-grant funded portions, and then, so we just put that in there as a placeholder. A lot of that, we don't have a design yet, we'll actually be talking to you about that next week too. But that's the things that the grant would not cover, so like gateway signage, hardscape type stuff, the TxDOT grant does not cover those things. If you want to do lighting, if you want to do other things like that, they would not cover that.
I don't know, to me, you have to get a list first of things that you, to look at the amount, and then it seems like we're going
You know what this is?
backwards. Yeah.
Well, and I guess what I'm trying to clarify,
It's a wish list,
this is the
40
list,
million.
this is the list that would be given to the committee. And they can X off whatever they want from this list.
And
And they're gonna have to. I mean, you
add
can't
whatever
fund
they
that
want.
one.
So
Right.
that's what should be said.
that's-
Because the people that I'm
that's
talking
what
with, they
the
don't
question-
understand that.
But that's what the other question number 5, what other needs should be
Yeah.
considered? That is for the
Said it right
committee to
there.
look at.
I
beyond
know, but
this.
maybe that's not being stressed enough. I don't know. I know, you think everything is,
I-
if I hear that from more than one person on a different committee,
Well, I need specifics
And-
because I'm not sure what it is that a staff member is telling a committee how to vote or how to do their job.
they're not telling them how to vote.
Well, that's what it sounds like it's being implied.
Okay,
So I
well,
guess I
never
just
mind.
need
I
some-
know what
mean,
you're talking
But I
about.
think, from experience and being on the board, the thing for the school board, that, Mr. Mayor said it perfect, that the way they had that set up, it was great. I mean, it was seamless. I didn't feel any pressure from anyone. We talked, we had dialogue, sometimes it was heated, because, people all over the city had schools that, this school's in my community versus this school in why the ones in my district or where I live are not getting attention. I mean, but it was healthy, it was healthy dialogue, so.
Okay,
If we do it like that, I think, just from personal experience, it worked great.
Okay, and you've been on committees in the city, and so did you feel you had a lot to,
Well, the only other one I worked on was the Multicultural Commission, and no, we never had. No, I don't want to talk about that. It was terrible. But I've already expressed that, Mr. Husband knows that.
Okay.
So as far as the makeup of the committee then, what we were looking at, and this was just an idea, is you get a point members of the general public. You might want to have somebody from P&Z, the DCEDC, the Neighborhood Vitality Commission, TIF Board, Parks and Rec, Library Advisory Board, and then a couple of people from the Chamber of Commerce. or any others that you
I
might
think-
want to.
How many people do you have on your committee, Patrick?
Oh, it was about, it may have been about 25 of us. Maybe about 25 of us. It was a decent number, because, of course, you want to make sure that, on any good given meeting, people couldn't make every meeting, but you want to
Sure.
make sure there was a good number there where we still could have
I think you want enough people too, where you have a good cross-section of
Well,
interest and ideas.
Right. And one of the things that I would want with this is that it seems like in the committees, I mean, even if we go back to what we just recently had with the redesign of the branding, that the same citizens are on every committee. We need, if we're going to nominate them as a council, we need to pick somebody that's not already sitting on multiple committees, because they just have too much influence over everything that's going on
He
there.
just said he wanted them from the committees.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not talking,
No.
I'm talking about like number 7, I'm thinking that's from us.
Yeah, there's 7 members
Yeah,
from the
that-
general.
yeah,
public.
that's 7
Yeah,
members
and that can
that-
change, it can be 9,
Right.
whatever you want.
Right.
But I
so-
mean, that's how you get them redundant, is when you pick people from the existing committees already to be on.
But also, those committees have a direct interest in, and a direct input into those different segments, like the Parks Board. They're gonna know what they've been looking at, they're gonna be very familiar with the Parks Master Plan. The Library Advisory Board, same thing. Neighborhood Vitality Commission has ideas on, they may have input on streets, park, things that help with the neighborhoods. So those are all committees that are already aligned, I think, with what you're wanting to do and achieve with a bond. And they have it, so I think it's beneficial. But that, again, that's up to the council if you don't want to do that. But at least then you're getting a good cross-section of other people who have some expertise in those areas. And the Chamber of Commerce, I think, is important because you want your business community backing a bond. And so if they're part of the process, then I think you have a better chance to of getting that support for a bond.
Of course, not all of the chamber are citizens of Duncanville.
And I think that needs to be kind of one of the requirements that they need.
If they're a business owner in Duncanville, they're affected.
Well, that's
Yeah, but
true.
they're not,
That's true.
they're just not the citizens of Duncanville.
But that's just my main concern about the structure of this committee, because the same people are on 1, 2, 3, 4 committees having influence in directing how things are done. And that's just not, I don't think that's fair. That's too much power, too much leverage.
Okay, but we don't have, are people on 2, 3 committees?
Some of them are, yeah.
Two
Some of the
or three.
people, some of the people that were on, that were nominated for the design are already sitting on some other committees.
And when you say they have an interest, every citizen in the town has an interest.
Right. So let's pick someone that's not currently, I mean, we should know people in our district, that we should be able to nominate, that's not already sitting on some committee.
Yeah, you're talking about the 7 members for the general public. What do you think about the ones, those keyboards?
Well, I mean, I agree with, they all have a vested interest in what we're doing. I could see why there's a need for them to be there. I think one of the things that we could put as a caveat, it should not be the president or the chairman or whoever leads that board. It just needs to be maybe a member, someone that's on the neighborhood vitality, not the, I don't know if they call them president or leader, I don't know what they call them.
Would you see each of those boards appointing someone, or would you want to do that?
I think the appointments should all rest with us. I think we should do that.
So maybe they nominate and you ratify?
Or, I mean, we could get a list of the board these board members,
And you pick?
and we can pick.
That's what I wanted to find out, process for selection.
Right, that's-
How do you
yeah.
all want to select?
That's what I'm thinking, because I've just noticed that the same people, every time there's a selection, it's the same people that's on there, and I don't understand that, and I just don't think that's a fair and equal distribution of what's going on in the city.
I don't either, because we're held responsible for it in the end. We are held responsible. And yet it's all these other people that, and you're right, some of them are on 2 and 3 committees.
So if we got a list of who's on the planning and zoning, and I guess that would also include whatever city staff member that's assigned, would that, if we got a list, like,
We could, and probably what we would want to do is to first ask each of them, the boards, who would be willing to be on.
Okay.
And then at least you have the
list,
one who
okay,
can.
that are
do it,
willing,
but-
because you won't want to appoint someone that doesn't want to do
Yeah,
it.
right.
I agree with that, I agree with that.
On the general public, we could probably put out a call, the public on the website, next door and stuff, to see if people want to apply. It would be a short window, but we could do that as well. You might get some people who have not ever served or who would be willing to serve.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get those that are already as well, but, I just think,
I'd like to see it where each council member gets their own pick.
and I like that too, but, and with that way, we would know who we've already nominated to be on some committee, and we need to pick somebody else. It's good, Lexi, I agree with that. Now, down here, when you say others, what's,
If there was any other segment, other area that you would want to draw people from.
I'm thinking, because one of the things that came up in the, I'm just going back to the meeting we had with the design logo. Is there any way to not to discriminate, just, we need to try to get a group of young people involved in, because, Leslie made a point that,
I nominated, my guy on that board is 24 years old.
well, and that's what I'm saying, but you made a point that, the day is gonna come that, us sitting around this table, we're gonna be gone, we're gonna die. It's gonna happen, we just need to get prepared for it. But we need to make sure, that, they're the.
We can leave without dying.
Are you saying they're gonna get a bus load?
I'm not.
I'm trying to get on to that.
No, but what I'm trying, stop, Steve. What I'm trying to say is we need to make sure that we have, I guess, a range of input, because, they're gonna be here. It's gonna be their city. Like I said, these people, this future council, it's gonna be them. So we need to make sure that, I guess those things are kind of considered when we're nominating somebody. Because again, that's back to, it's the same people are nominated for the same thing over and over and over. So I don't know, that's why I was thinking about that other, just what would that,
And I was excited about nominating my guy. He's 24, 25 years old. He's grew up in Duncanville, and we're excited to be on it. And it's my chance to introduce him to the seasoned people that are on that, so he can learn from them, and hopefully he runs for council.
so that was my thing about how the structure and how they're selected. I think we need to, the boards can be surveyed to see who's willing to serve, and then we get that list and pick.
Unfortunately, some of us have millenniums and younger people in our households that can't be on the boards, and they don't necessarily agree with us.
Why can't people?
Because I said, you can't have a relative.
Oh, okay.
Said what? I'm sorry.
We can't have relatives on boards?
Where did that really come from?
So who are the 7 members? Which pool are they supposed to come
Huh?
from?
Someone
They
that
aren't involved?
Well, I'm thinking someone.
It's a really important decision, and we're going to get people that aren't involved.
Well, I wouldn't say that are not involved. But I think that I know it's just being at large. I've met people in every district, and a lot of them is not that they're not involved. They have the same consent that I have, that the same people are always picked. There's a faction of Duncanville that are running the city that are not city officials, but yet and still they still run it. So let's pick somebody else. Let's ask. like in church evangelism, man, you walk 5 doors to the left, 5 to the right, I guarantee you're gonna find somebody that don't go to church. It's the same thing. Your house, walk 5 to the left, 5 to the right, ask somebody, do you want to serve? I don't think it's that hard. A lot of times they're not involved because they have not been asked. And that's the bottom line.
But they're also given letters just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
They can come forward and.
They could, absolutely. But you got those people that want to be asked.
That's what the letter did.
Well, what's wrong with face-to-face?
Or if you make them mad enough, they come out.
Because I guarantee you that's what got the guy in Natalie Lane out.
Yeah.
He got mad because the trash, the mail are not going to serve him no more. So now he comes. That's what got you out. They're going to take your property. Okay.
So if you're not mad, maybe don't come out.
Well, there's a certain truth to that. If everything's running smooth,
Yeah.
you're busy, you're not gonna go out of your way to come up and start volunteering with the city. You
And
gotta have something to.
I never thought about being on the multi until someone asked me. I never thought about it until they asked me.
He also said it was a lot better than LA though.
Said it was what?
He also said it was
Well, I
better than LA.
Well, on others, I'm just gonna throw this out. Patrick, you're probably the pro in this. Should we include the faith-based community?
I think so.
Invite 2 or 3 ministers?
Yeah, that would be good. I mean,
If they live here, because you're getting back to,
Well,
they
that's
don't
true.
live
Well,
here.
yeah, but if they do,
Some of them
some of them do. Some of them
Yeah.
do.
If they live here.
Well,
If
they
they
had
do.
one in Rotary this way, Robert Summer.
But I think
Duncanville.
I think that's something that would definitely be a good idea. I mean, we need that, and you know, they will bring a different level of.
Yeah, their concerns will be different.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that may could impact some of what they. Yeah, that's a great idea.
How many?
Oh, well, I mean, that's back to, I mean, I think he has the bottom bullet is 15 to 19 members. And he has a question mark, I guess we got to decide on that final number. Yeah, that final number. But like I said, we had, if I can remember, I think it was, I know it was an odd number, it's 25, because, of course, when we were trying to agree on stuff, we wanted to make sure it wasn't an even, always a split.
Cedar Hill had a committee of 35, I think, when they did their bond advisory committee last year was 35.
Yeah, and I don't know why, it was Dr. Ray at the time, I don't know why he picked 25.
He ran this show.
Yes, yeah.
He was one that made the final selection.
So if y'all want to go more than that.
Well,
More than 19,
let's
it's up to y'all.
find out what, how much interest we have, and then we could, do we have to set them out at a number?
Well, yeah, let's see the list.
Yeah, I don't think we have, that we can set that later.
Exclude.
Yeah, there may be some good people on there.
So we'll do that in the briefing session next,
Might have to pay them.
we'll do that in the briefing section next meeting?
The plan was that next meeting, we'll have an item on there for you to actually establish the committee, because we'll just leave the
Do we-
numbers.
yeah, leave the
open
number
right
off,
now.
and then
But
we'll-
but the charge to the committee and establishing a committee of 15 to 19 members or something like that.
And then we'll name
And
it.
then the next meeting after
We
that,
can
that way
name the committee.
we'll bring in the list and everything, then you'll be able to review that and make those appointments then.
So we need, have we agreed on the process of how we're gonna select?
I think we pretty well
Okay.
got it.
So each council member will appoint their person, and then those that are willing will give their names to the city council, and we'll choose those from the list, from the committees.
Yeah, and use the others that have particular assignments to,
And the others
Fill out the
will include faith-based.
whatever.
Well, that's a lot larger than 19. Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner CPA.
That's fine.
Well, that's six,
Well,
they add up
each
to
council
16.
person, I would
Yeah.
think each council person.
But then you
Yeah,
have,
three faith-based.
Thinks they approve whatever they want.
okay, but where are you taking the ones
Well,
that the
it may be
council appoints from the?
The
general
seven,
public?
the seven is us, one each, and then we'll get a list from all those ones, and then we'll pick from that list. Am I right so far?
Yeah.
And then we'll get I don't know, I guess the chamber, I don't know who picks the two
Well,
people.
since 3 of y'all are coming from District 1, I hope you know different people
Oh, I do.
than David and,
The two of the three represent the entire city, not District 1.
oh, so you would pick outside one?
Well, I have in the past.
Well,
Picked a few out of the city.
Mate, good for you. I didn't know you'd appointed anybody outside District 1.
Oh, that's all we had. Okay, you got that?
Was it. I think we discussed all of those then. So we have direction.
In the first 15 to 30 days, you're not gonna be anything. Okay, that looks like that has covered our agenda items tonight. So it is now, whatever time it is, 8:30. Oh, no, not 8:30, Mary.
8:13.
Real fast.
8:12. We're adjourned.
Okay.